Oh boy. So, obviously, me being the person to hop on to trends, I have to talk about this, right? Like, I'm a content creator. I mean, I never said I was a good content creator. I never said I was a good YouTuber. I'm pretty shit. But nonetheless, I had to talk about this because it's odd that because this happened 3 years ago, and I remember it being a like something that has happened, but 3 years ago, actually nobody talked about this. But I do remember seeing this case and being like, "Well, that's pretty fucked up." At least based on everything I've seen. But like most things of this nature, you don't really form an opinion initially until the actual trial happens. And I will say, from what I've seen online, this is like the OJ Simpson, but for women. Like what OJ Simpson was for African Americans, Lindsay Clancy is for women. Now I'm gonna start by saying, like, unfortunately, I understand the judicial system of America, and unfortunately, just because she confesses doesn't just because you confess don't mean they actually committed the crime, right? Because what would happen is they'll come to you, right, and be like, "Look, we can give you the death penalty, right? You can fry in the chair if you say you're innocent, or you can admit you're guilty, and we give you 15 years." So obviously, if she, because of that, it's like, what is any rational person going to do? Where they're going to confess, right? And I guess in her particular case, right? Because from what I've read, she was on some fucked up medication, like medication that legitimately fucks you up mentally. Like, I must just say, in my opinion, she should get the chair, and we should see what doctors, who in the pharmaceutical industry subscribe these things to her, right? And she gets the chair, and we actually legitimately audit the like doctors who gave her these prescriptions, right? This is the opinion I personally hold. But it's odd how other people are going, women, how specific types of women are going about this, right? And there's a reason why I call this the OJ Simpson, but for women. And I can go on X and show the retardation and everything from, oh, she's a late Leo, he's a fucking Copernicus, and therefore because of the retrograde of bullshit, she didn't do it. Again, people, it's one thing if you just legitimately believe she did not commit the crime. Like, I don't think you're a bad person for just saying I don't think she committed the crime. Even you can be wrong, you can be incorrect, but I don't think you're entirely a bad person. And this has shifted quite a few times, right? Because now apparently a lot of people are donating to her on PayPal, and she's got like millions of dollars from this. And if I'm not mistaken, on PayPal, you're not allowed to donate to, say, certain criminal charges, criminal like harm to minors. Like, you're not allowed to do this on PayPal, but they've allowed this regardless. So now we need to see how PayPal goes about these things. Like, they've cracked down on this in the past about funding the attorney of people who've committed crimes, but they seem to just be fine with this. Like, I find that very odd. And regardless of what PayPal thinks, like, PayPal's a company, they're not supposed to think. They're supposed to, enforce the rules. If they don't do that, well, then that's another thing. You kind of gotta, maybe another thing that needs to be investigated, right? But again, what I've seen, everything from people knowing she did it and still defending her. It's like, okay, so what are you trying? Like, what do you see in this case where she committed the killing of these 3 children, but despite that, you still support her, right? Like, we can go into, the whole pharmaceutical company and a lot of the things that are just not told to you, right? Like I said, the medication she was given, like, was inhumane. Like, some medical fucking somebody gave her this medicine that induced her postpartum depression and psychosis and led to the killing. And it's odd, again, like, one of the children was like 8 months. Usually things like this would happen within like maybe a month to a couple weeks. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not a woman, right? But I do understand, again, not being a woman, but if you come to me with an issue, I'm going to pass out solutions regardless of if I'm not really qualified, right? Like, I talk about things like this in a very matter-of-fact type of way when going about this, and I can talk about the case, but I really just want to talk about the structures that allowed this to happen, right? Like, I do believe the way Americans raise children is incorrect. You have the mother and the father and the kids, and I do believe that's the wrong way of doing things. Like, in all honesty, you should have the mother, the father, the grandparents on both their side, the cousins, the close relatives, the friends, and all these forces should come together to raise children. And these things have happened for thousands of years, and it avoids situations like this, because when you have a child, you have to deal with, again, the hormones and the things that happen that are completely outside of anyone's control in the body of the femoid, the female specimen. But you also have to deal with the child themselves. Like, they cry for, like, literally no reason. Like, they will cry and cry, and you're waking up probably every 2-ish hours or even less so. And when this happens, like, sleep deprivation causes things like you to be irritable and you to just get pissed off. And within this time, you have effectively the patriarchy, right? You have the father, the grandfather, the husband around, the grandparents around for whenever you spurg the fuck out. They can intervene. Whenever you become a hysterical woman, the patriarchy can come down upon you and be like, look, woman, what you want? What you want, woman? Like, there's a lot of things I've seen on both sides. Like, people are like, well, we must reenact the patriarchy. And it's like, you have never grown up in a rural community, or how your grandparents grew up, because again, in the patriarchy, you had obligations as the man, and this was one of those obligations. People like to believe what they are told from their like gender studies degree, the 50 grand you threw into that, or what you see online, but no one has actually like lived with farmers or lived with the Amish or in like Africa, realize what African tribes do. No one has ever really been a part of it. You grew up in a big city because you probably have the city dwelling mentality. You grew up with like all sorts of amenities around you that you can't even comprehend what you're talking about, right? And again, like, why would this be the right solution? It's like, okay, because again, this has happened for thousands of years. Is it perfect? No. Like, you have trade offs, but at the end of the day, you want to protect the child. And I believe this is a better thing. I mean, I call it the patriarchy, but in all honesty, it's, just the family unit coming together. And this avoids situations where you have no one really to turn to, so you turn to medication, and those medications turn you into a hysterical woman, and atrocities like this happen. And again, atrocities like this are going to happen, right? Because I'm not, 12. I understand, unfortunately, things like these are bound to happen. Like, 300 million people, 350 million people. Eventually, you're going to get a Lindsay Clancy. What surprises me is, again, how people are reacting to this, right? And this is why I call it the O.J. Simpson for women, right? Because you have women that just legitimately do believe, that either believe she did it and still support her, or they're you doing like stupid like horoscope type shit. And it's also one of those things online where if you can just post a thing to get clicks and get a couple $100, you're going to do it. It's like, these aren't your kids. This isn't someone it's not in your family, but you post the picture of, I don't know, women throwing ice in a bathtub or some retarded shit, or women at this like surprisingly organized like rally and meeting in front of the courthouse, with their kids and everything, and showing solidarity. Again, I understand wanting someone to have legal counsel, and then people are like blaming the husband for some reason. Like, it's like, okay, I get it, you're just trying to piss people off, but do you have to be so blatant? Like, I can believe the women that just straight up don't believe it didn't happen, because again, unfortunately, you have the judicial system, but just blaming the husband, acting like he's the shadow of the patriarchy that made her do these things. And the details is actually gruesome. Like, she effectively strangled each one of her children one by one and watched the others, like, watch them. And apparently it's due to some schizophrenic episode or whatever. But I'm also, okay, I haven't really read this trial. I said Sparking Widespread and Lindsay's trial in June 33, 23. Then this is probably a little later. Again, you try to get, a legitimate. Probably going to continue. Okay, it's not telling me to sign up some stupid shit. So, yeah, her ex-husband, right? Of course, after this, he's like, yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And again, just by the look of the husband, it's like, well, how are you supposed to look in this situation, knowing your wife killed 3 of your kids because of medication that she was prescribed that made her go crazy? And again, I don't want to be unsympathetic, but again, the way America raises kids, like, okay, maybe it makes, a profitable nation if you just have two parents that have to work, and when your kids are 18, they still don't have a job, right? Because they've been in university, and then they're 20 something years old. They still don't have a job, and you're effectively paying through all of it. And again, you don't have your uh, grandparents. You don't have the family units. It's like shit like this is just going to happen. Like, you don't have the patriarchy to be like, calm the fuck down, heifer, stupid heifer, right? Nah, I'm just kidding. But it's like, yes, things like this is just going to happen. And again, to the extent that people, again, go out of their way to antagonize people, because again, there are women that just legitimately want the situation where they're not held accountable for any of their actions, right? Other women know women like this. I like, don't leave it to me, some dude, to say this, right? Like, other women knows that woman that just is incapable of taking responsibility. And online, again, it's like a completely different ecosystem. Like, you don't see this as a human being. You don't see the husband and the children as the victims. You see this as just, oh, hey, a case that happened far away, and you need to take maybe an ideological stance to it, maybe an identity stance to it, whatever the case may be. What you see is people either standing for or against this, and I'm like, well, you can have multiple things happen, right? And again, what I want is for her to get the death penalty, and whatever medical practitioner gave her the drugs, the pharmaceutical remedies that induce this, to be put on trial and to be audited, so shit like this just doesn't happen, because you can easily say she was also a victim. Now, it led to her victimizing three other. And again, people talk about the kids, like, no one talks about the family around her, the husband and his family. These kids, they went to school, the friends, the community. Like, no one really views them as the victims of the act of her. And it's like, yeah, she is a victim. They're a victim, but she committed the crime, so she should be held accountable. Unfortunately, punishment should happen to her regardless of the situation. And, I mean, the insanity defense, I think there should be some statute of limitation. Like, maybe if you committed assault, sure, but if you committed murder, like 3 times, and it's like blaming the husband, or blaming alcohol for the husband of getting drunk and beating the fuck out of his wife and beating the fuck out of his kids. It's like, yeah, we can blame the alcohol, but he should still be held accountable, right, for his actions. Because, again, a rational person could easily choose not to do that, even in his situation, even with being inebriated, right? It's just some people don't have that restraint, and for them, maybe they should be, one, face the consequences of their actions, and be separated from people, from the people who can exist in society without being violent and without killing. And I think the same should apply to her. Again, my unfiltered opinion and matter of fact way of speaking about this thing, I think she should get the fucking rope, and whoever gave her the medication should also be audited. so things like this just don't happen. And well, far cry for me to say America should change the system in which we raise children, right? Because it's like other cultures do what I say that have existed for thousands of years, and we've done it for thousands of years in the past. But for some reason, we stopped doing it. Like, I guess the welfare state could be, the unit that keeps people together instead of, legitimate families. But whatever. I mean, that's all I gotta say about this. Peace out.